Just one second. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, I'd like to invite the speaker, Mr. David J. Lobo, who will talk about fertigation for maximum coconut production. I now request the speaker to begin. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this information. Let me give a little introduction to myself and our work. I started Deejay Coconut Farm Private Limited, and that is over 44 years old. We've been into the breeding of the Sampurna coconut palm hybrid. And as you can see, the slide, there are various aspects to it. Get my two papers. And there is we are focusing on genetics of the coconut palm to improve it and to make it better day by day. As you can see from this slide, operations have got established over the years. We have locations in many places, and 30,000 mother palms, which we have been constantly improving, and we have exports as well. Today's program in particular I want to talk about is how do we get the best out of the high yielding hybrids that we produce. I think that's very important for all agriculture, getting the best out of the genetic material. Here is a slide with a few of our hybrid palms of different ages and gives you an idea of high yielding palms. And I'll show you more palms from other parts of the world. And how do we do this? I would start off a little bit with what we do and how we came to the conclusion of improving the management. We are constantly improving the mother palms and the father palms, which produce the hybrid. The hybrid is a cross between the dwarf mother and a tall father. There's a lot of detail in the crossing. I'm happy to share that, but that's not pertinent now. As you see, we produce a hybrid that is very high in yielding, and many parts of the world we have supplied seedlings to, and these are performances from Malaysia, and we have in other countries too, in Kenya, and so on. What is the use of high genetics if we do not have the management to handle it? I say this because it is well known that the results from a farm or from the coconut tree is only due to 20% of the results come from genetics, 80% comes from management. This ratio of 20 to 80 is very important for the farmer to keep in mind. As breeders, we do the genetics and the selections. As farmers, that can be achieved based on their management. To give a little better idea, we select from our 30,000 mother palms with higher number of buttons and fruit and nuts. And here are a few pictures of the youngest of our mother palms, which are much better than what we produced in the beginning. But as you can see, can every farmer get these results? These are just our mother palms. These are not the hybrid, but I can clearly tell you we are getting this production because we know how to manage the trees based on the research we have done, which we wish to share. We noticed a contradiction in the coconut palm. The coconut palm evolved on the tropical beaches of the world, but the beach is not a good place for agricultural yields. It's only sand and it's salt water, and most things don't grow there. How did the coconut palm do such a wonderful job of producing, even though it's on the seashore? The second contradiction which struck us is that the coconut palm, unlike any other tree, has all its functions happening at the same time. The growth of leaves, the growth of flowers from embryonic stage onward, the pollination of those flowers, the production of fruit, the producing that very, very heavily oil enabled fruit, the coconut oil which comes from it. All this is a result of a tree growing on the beach. But we find that the trees 3 to 5 kilometers inland do not produce as much. So that set us thinking that, sorry, I missed out a point, and that is all other trees in the world have regular seasons for their production, for their leaf growth, except the coconut tree, where all these functions are happening simultaneously. How does it manage this? We started doing our research, many different trials in many of our different farms, and slowly, I think we were to some extent lucky. Uh, we hit the jackpot. That is what we are sharing with you. We've found that the sea contains all the different nutrition that a tree requires. It also contains salt, but the coconut tree is able to manage that. It has evolved to manage the extra salt in the water. So now you have a tree that has not just managed well on the beach, but continuously operates its different functions all at the same time. That's the hint that get us started on our research. The sea comes every day, the tides come in, feed the coconut tree with nutrition, go out again, allowing enough of oxygen to bathe the roots, which is very, very necessary. Now, the sea contains all nutrition. We discovered that after studying it up. The palm, therefore, was able to evolve and continuously produce all its functions at the same time. No other tree we know can do that. How do we copy the sea? We do what the sea wants us to do by giving weekly fertigation. Daily may be better, but that might be asking for too much of the farmer. Weekly fertigation is very clearly here a necessity to achieve the genetic potential. It is a necessity. Most farms and farmers say that they don't do very much. They don't even irrigate. And they are getting an yield. Why can't all these trees give their yield continuously? Why do we have to take so much of trouble? Well, you have a comparison of the high yielding hybrid tomato, which, unless it's staked and looked after carefully, will topple over, will not give you any fruit compared to the jungly tomato. So, when you have high yielding plants, You have got to now give that extra bit in management. And this I bring to all farmers everywhere. The high yielding hybrids are very high yielding compared to naturally evolved palms. You must give them that extra fertilization. We call it weekly fertigation to achieve its genetic potential. Fertigation is a simple form of mixing fertilizers with the water. So you don't have too many extra work. In fact, it's less work because the labor has to be the worker has to be trained as to how to manage the equipment. If you are handling a few trees, you can do manual fertigation, mixing the fertilizers in the water, giving it to the trees, giving the macro fertilizers once in the week, and 2 or 3 days later, giving them micro fertilizers. You want to make it easier and you have more palms, 500 or more, or 1,000 palms. The Venturi system does that for you. Of course, there are also systems which are highly automatic, run by a telephone, by a cell phone far away from the site, which costs more, but which also does the job. So, fertigation is a simple technology used in so many forms of agriculture, but has not been used for the coconut palm. We now recommend that it is necessary if the palm is to get continuous nutrition to continue its continuous production. So, we are happy to help with formulas and we try and prepare formulas for various areas and location, but that's separate. Right now, the principle to tell all coconut farmers to go back to fertigation on a weekly basis to get their best results. Let me share a little bit what happened when we started our research and what we found out, and whether uh, whether you can do the same. Well, before I come to that, yes, you can do the same because there's nothing special we did. We took some of the new palms which we were planting. Most of us dig a pit. We used to, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, mix it with the aggregate of topsoil and sand and compost and so on and so forth, and plant that coconut seedling in it. 200 of our to be planted mother palms, we just made a hole in the ground and planted them, 200, and gave them weekly fertigation. However, 1,500 of the same mother palms, on the same date as it were planted in the regular routine fashion. And I want to compare the results and show you them. The 200 palms started yielding, 20% had flowered before they were 2 years old. 72% had flowered before they were 3 years old. Now, dwarf palms tend to flower early, but we were surprised with the earliness of these trees. And the pictures show you really healthy, really lovely palms. The 1,500 palms which we planted the regular way, 5% have yielded in the third year when they turned 3 years old. Let me go to old trees. We were cutting down many of our dwarfs. As you can see, these two, which I've got here as a picture, are dwarf palms, but which are 40 years old. Their yields drop down because they become senile. Dwarfs do not yield for more than 25, 30 years. But as we were getting a seed nut, being a little more valuable, we could extend its life. And we were cutting them down when they were 40 years old. And then we decided, hey, let's do an experiment. 300 out of the 600, we gave them fertigation. The other 300 got the regular fertilizers 4 times a year. The plant on the left you can see is the one with the regular fertilizers with very little production. The plant on the right, 6 months later, is now filling up with fruit, and we found today very, very much better results for an old tree. So this is the experiments we did with the old palms, all the experiments we did with younger palms, which include the Sampurna. Most of the research we did on our own palms, which are dwarfs and talls, but we also did research on the Sampurnas, and everywhere the production went up between 20 and 60%, depending upon the level of management that existed there before. So we recommend to you and to everybody else that change over to fertigation immediately. You cannot get the genetic potential of a high yielding palm from a low yielding palm. But you can get that genetic potential if you give it all the inputs of nutrition and water. These two are the most important aspect of coconut farming. Let me go aside slightly to tell you that producing a hybrid to produce more and more fruit, improving the genetics is very, very important to feed this country. To go back a few centuries, 2000 years ago, there were only 230 million people on the earth. Lifespan was 27 years. What was the cause of death? Most died because of shortage of food, famine, and wars, of course. Today, on the 15th of November 2022, the world's population hit 8 billion people. Do we have the same type of famine and shortage of food as 2000 years ago? No. There's almost enough food for everyone, except that the distribution isn't good enough. So the solution was hybridization. Hybridization of nearly every plant, fruit, vegetable, cereal has given you this very impressive development. But what is the use if you can't get that genetic potential to result in high production? Therefore, farmer friends, please get the installation, either manual or Venturi system for fertigation. This is most important because we cannot help. We do the genetics. The management has to come from you, the farmer. So therefore, let me just summarize quickly the genetics of all plants, and the coconuts in particular, are improving every year. We have a continuous improvement program where every year we introduce higher yielding mother palms, removing the poorest performers. Every year we do that. And therefore, every year there's an incremental benefit taking place in the supply of seedlings to farmers. We can do that. As I said earlier, we are the only people with 30,000 breeding stock. We do pedigree breeding. I don't know anyone else in the world who can tell the mother and father of every palm they have. We can. We do this to improve the genetics. It's of no use if you do not improve management correspondingly. And we are working on better fertilizer formulas so that that in turn will uh, will will be utilized by farmers for better results. Thank you very much for listening to me for so patiently. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the detailed presentation and informative presentation. So I'll now take up some questions.
Yes, certainly.
Just one second. Yeah, okay. So first question is, what is the ideal fertigation schedule for coconut at different stages of growth?
We recommend weekly fertigation from the day of planting. There's no need to do the annual fertigation 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a year. So when you plant a little seedling, the dosage for that seedling for the year is divided into 52 doses and given to the plant through the water. It's planted in a hole in the ground. We recommend that. The results we have got are very, very good. Weekly fertigation is a necessity. We start with one microtube if you've got the Venturi system. We go to 2 microtubes as we increase the water supply as the plant grows. The dosage is based on the annual dose divided by 52 according to the age of the plant. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Well, maybe I should also add similarly, when the plant comes into flower 3 years later, you will by that time have 4 microtubes and will be giving the full dosage of fertilizers and the full the water requirement, a little more in the summer, a little less at other times, not necessarily in the rainy season. So that needs to go on. But the fertigation and the fertilizers, not fertilizers, soluble fertilizers need to be done even through the rains just by pouring it around the tree. I hope
Okay.
that makes it a little clearer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So next question, how can fertigation help increase coconut yield and nut size compared with conventional fertilizer application?
Conventional fertilizer application means you're giving the food to the plant 4 times a year. We are giving the same food to the plant 52 times a year. We are not giving more food, we are dividing it up and giving smaller doses every week. What goes into the soil once a week stays there and gets depleted by the roots over the week. I cannot understand how a tree given fertilizers 4 times a year has enough nourishment and nutrition for the remaining 2 or 3 months. That is the difference. The coconut tree getting weekly fertigation is getting its weekly nutrition, which it needs for all its different functions. Each of the different functions requires a different hormone to trigger that particular function, whether it's flowering or um, pollen production, button production, whether it's leaf development. Each of these functions require a slightly different formula. Now, in nature, no soil is perfect, but the trees still manage. Let's take a mango tree. The mango tree gets its leaves at one time of the year, and it's collecting its nutrients within, using those nutrients as per the need of the hormones to trigger the next function. So there's enough of the different nutrients, even though in short supply in general, but enough for that function at that time. And flowering starts. And then pollination takes place and fruiting grows and the seed grows and so on, but only at specific times. In the coconut tree, it's continuous every day, and therefore it's very important to give weekly fertigation. I hope people understand this. No other tree has all its functions happening every day. The mango tree, you get your mangoes only in the summer. You get your coconuts every day of the year. I hope that's a little clearer.
Yeah. Okay. So, which major nutrients and micronutrients are most important for coconut, and and in what quantity should they be applied through fertigation?
A very good question. This would differ from area to area, but the general NPK and the micronutrients, this is more or less common. Area wise, there would be changes. Area wise, there would be changes. Uh, I am not competent enough to go into those details. I have people who can advise you. So if there is anyone who does want to know more, by all means, they should contact our office. We'll be happy to help.
Okay. And how should fertigation be adjusted during summer monsoon and periods of heavy rainfall?
A very good point. Fortunately, not all areas have very heavy rainfall. Along the west coast, we have very heavy rainfall. Most other places, the rainfall is moderate and reasonable, as it were. The formula is the same. The dosage is the same. Every week, the same amount of dosage means the annual fertilizers divided by 52. However, where there's extra rain, your fertilizers will get washed away. Uh, how do we cope with that? We choose a non rainy day in which to give the fertilizers. Now, we may stop the regular watering because we don't want to give too much of water. So, in heavy irrigated areas, we have farms on the west coast. So, we know what that means. We stop the irrigation, but we just give a mug of water into each of the points where we leave the water, a mug of the fertigation once a week, and we still give it its dosage uh, without too much of headache. Or through the venturi, we run the venturi for a short time and uh, distribute the fertigation. I hope that's helpful. If it's not clear, ask the question again.
Yes. Sir. Next question, please. How can farmers avoid fertilizer wastage and nutrient leaching while using fertigation?
Very, very good question. I am sure farmers know this. Most other people may not. That 80% of all fertilizers used and water is wasted, is not used by the tree. 80% is the average. Why is that? The reason is that fertilizer usage is based on the recommendation of the fertilizer manufacturers. They would like us to use the maximum amount of fertilizers, and the basis is productivity. You use so much more, you will get better productivity. That is correct. But how much of it is utilized? The tree's roots are not in every square centimeter of soil. You are throwing the fertilizers on the soil, mixing it with the soil. Are the roots in all those locations? When we do the same fertilizers for the coconut tree, you are focusing in the spots of the microtube releasing water. This is a very good point, which I would like to bring out. Never ever change the point of your microtubes. There are four microtubes taking water and releasing it in four different locations. We are doing some work on specific, exact locations, north, south, east, west. And until that research is over, already we are seeing good results. We will not talk about it, but later we'll come back to you. However, the point of putting in the uh, the, the fertigation into four spots means you're restricting the area in which the fertilizers are going. You're not putting them all over the soil, which is normally happening when you fertilize 4 times a year. Now you're putting in constantly in four spots, and that zone which gets the water is the zone of high concentration of fertilizers. The tree knows where the food is, and the tree grows more and more of its roots in these locations, these micro underground locations. As a result of that, more and more of the fertilizers are used. And this is one of the reasons why high yielding hybrids are doing much better, because the fertilizer is not scattered everywhere. They're scattered where the roots are. And that makes a massive difference. So, water gets used up and wasted, if you like to call it that, through evaporation and through seepage. If you put extra water, it goes beyond the roots levels, it's lost. And that water carries with it the fertilizer. Lost. Yes. The important thing to do is to manage the air water balance of the ground underneath the tree. We will come with further details of getting this balance right. When there is too much of water or waterlogging, all know that that does damage to most plants. When there's too little water, all know that the plant will suffer, water stress will happen. In this system, each farm with different types of soils and conditions can manage his water and nutrition much better. But this is being researched in depth, and we will come with further details on this in another 2 years' time. But I hope you realize that most fertilizers are lost in nearly all crops. We want to reduce that with coconuts. Our focus is on coconut farming. So we are looking at how we can save for the farmer fertilizers and water through the systems we have.
Okay. And what is the best way to determine the fertilizer dose? What is the best way to determine the fertilizer dose based on soil and leaf analysis?
I again would like to add that I'm not expert enough to talk on it in detail. There are people who can. However, a general answer, fertilizer dosages are known by concerned experts in the area what's better or worse for the area. We are recommending a general package which is more or less suitable for all areas. So we don't have many fertilizers. But if there's a farmer who wants specific details, specific help, certainly he can get a better job, a better performance if he makes a specific pack, fertilizer pack, fertigation pack. So we are happy to help there. What specifically should be done, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer.
And can fertigation help improve the number of nuts per palm and reduce premature nut dropping?
Yes, you're right. Premature nut dropping and what we call button dropping. And we also need to remember that the coconut is on the tree for 12 months before it matures and is harvested. And during that long period of time, so many things can happen and go wrong. Uh, will you just ask me the question again? Because it's a little unclear.
Sure, one second. Okay. So can fertigation help improve the number of nuts per palm and reduce premature nut dropping?
Yes, certainly. The whole purpose of this effort is to give the coconut palm constant nutrition, which now enables it, because of its evolution, to continue its constant functions all at the same time. So, straight off, constant nutrition, constant fertigation is helping that. The biggest benefit we get is in nut production. There are other benefits. You get more leaves, you get longer lasting leaves instead of living just 2 years, 2.5 years on the tree. They last 3.5 years. They produce more sugars through photosynthesis. All these other benefits take place because the tree is getting its optimum nutrition, which includes water. So, uh, the first benefit which we want and everybody wants is more nut production. But the other benefits are larger nuts, better setting percentage, more nuts starting off, less nuts falling. All the different areas get benefits. We as breeders get the benefit of better germination. Farmers don't see that, don't need that, but I can speak on it from my point of view. The germination also improves, the quality of the seedling also improves. So, if the tree gets better nutrition regularly, all functions improve. I hope that's clearer.
Yes, sir.
Drop, you mentioned that. Yes, there
Yes.
are specific micronutrients for that. Uh, some soils are very boron deficient, which is an important micronutrient for button drop. West Bengal area, the whole zones there are uh, very low, uh, very low boron in the soil. So this can be adjusted quite easily in the nutrition. It's very easy to solve these problems with fertigation. That the boron is very important for uh, to stop button drop, to have good pollination and good retention of nuts. There are other um, micronutrients, but I would let the experts talk there.
Okay. And what are the most common mistakes farmers make while implementing drip irrigation and fertigation in coconut plantations?
The concept of fertigation is fairly new. Um, Let me comment because it's a very important question. The first and most important aspect is an attitudinal change. The farmer must change his attitude. 4 times a year, fertilizing the coconut tree is what he's used to. Why are these people troubling us and asking us to give every week? This is an attitudinal issue. That's what they must look at first. The next issue is they think it is more labor intensive. It is not. Once the system is set up, it is more. But if you have a manual system, yes, it might be a little bit more. Looking after 10 trees, the benefits you get far outweigh the cost of the effort, the time and the effort. For example, if your tree is giving 50 nuts a year, now you get 75 nuts, you can do the calculation, find out the difference. How many of our farmers, Sampurna farmers, are getting 250 nuts? I'm talking mature nuts. I don't think more than 20% are. How many will get that if they give fertigation? I think more than 80% will get it. I'm just giving you an example. When they see the difference and getting 250 to 300 nuts, there are farmers getting 300 plus nuts for tender coconut purposes. That would go up even higher if they practice fertigation. So, farmers targeting the mature market, they should get at least 20% more based on giving good management to the plants earlier. If their management wasn't so good, if they didn't supplement water in the summer months, if they missed one or two fertilizer applications, they'd get even better results. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. And just two to three more questions.
Yeah, sir.
What is the approximate additional investment required for a farmer to adopt fertigation, and how quickly can the investment be recovered through higher yield and reduced fertilizer wastage?
Manual system requires no further investment. The Venturi system, approximately 30,000 rupees, generally in most places, will cover the cost of putting in one Venturi to a system which is already there. A system of not drip, but supplying water through microtubes, which I think most farmers follow, so they don't have to make trenches and supply water irrigation through trenches, because that's a very big loss of water. So most are using pipes, which are microtubes, which reach the farms, the palms, which reach the palms. Now, those uh, those pipes are there already. Just add the 30,000 cost of a Venturi, and you can easily look after 1,000 palms with that. So that's 300 rupees a palm. No, is it 300 or 30 rupees the palm? So it's not much. If you go for a highly automated system, that will cost much more. And there are so many different companies with different quotations that I'm not going to say anything on that.
Right. Okay. Okay. Um, so, yeah. From your experience, what is the biggest limiting factor for achieving consistently high coconut yields? Water availability, nutrient management, variety, pest and disease management, or overall farm management?
I used to say water shortages were the biggest uh, cause of lower productivity, especially in the summer months. But I've stopped saying that since we developed the system of fertigation and we started using it, and we find that you don't need to give as much water as you're giving earlier. I don't want to recommend the savings because each farm is different, each type of condition is different, but your requirement of water is a little less, And once the system is established, you will find your palms doing really well with less water than what farmers have to give today. So uh, I don't see any downside to a simple solution of fertigation.
Okay.
You're actually saving on labor as well, because giving fertilizers 4 times a year requires a lot of work and a lot of labor. Once you set up the system, it's a question of an automatic delivery of fertilizers with one laborer involved for a short amount of time.
Right. Okay. So now we have the last question. As chairman of Deejay Coconut Farm, what practical fertigation model or schedule would you recommend to small and medium coconut farmers who want to increase production without significantly increasing input costs?
Um, uh, we have a schedule of that. I would request whoever is interested to write to our office, email, or call. And that schedule is common for everybody. However, um, I'm uh, the I cannot off the cuff remember the exact details. I was wondering if I could get hold of that, but we can supply it later on to whoever wants.
No problem.
Oh, can you ask that question again? Maybe there's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
I
One
missed out.
second.
My
I will
memory
just
is
do it.
letting me down.
I'll post the question in the chat box. It will be easy for you. Yeah, I posted the question in the chat box.
Yes, okay. What practical fertigation model or schedule would you recommend to small and medium farmers who want to increase production without significantly increasing input costs? Um, Venturi system is good for anybody with over 500 trees, and no change in the schedule, no change in the concentration, unless that particular area requires a change. Every farmer, especially the small farmer, will see benefits not immediately. It will take 6 months because the embryonic spathe, that's the flower, takes 6 months to grow fully, but it is damaged right from the date it starts growing if nutrition is uh, is wanting. So it takes 6 months to come out, uh, and if it's got the right nutrition right from the beginning, 6 months time you'll start seeing flower bunches with more buttons, more nuts, and in a year's time you'll find your tree looking very different. In 18 months time, when you start harvesting, you will see the full benefit. So I don't want people to think start giving fertigation and immediately the trees will be filled with coconuts. No, it takes time, and it takes time to fill up all the missing nutrients in the tree. But fortunately for us, the tree does not have to store anything. So the moment it gets it, all its functions start improving almost immediately. So it's a question of putting in the system. And that's not so difficult with the Venturi. And the people who supply it will give the guidance as to the little detail of management and maintenance of the system. We follow it in all our farms.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, sir, I don't see any more questions. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we'd like to thank you for the presentation and answering all the questions in depth. I hope our listeners will benefit from this presentation and the talk. So we'll end this meeting now, sir. Have a good evening and wish you happy Independence Day in advance.
Thank you very much. Wish you the very same.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.